He says in Micah 5:8, the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many peoples, like a lion among the beasts of the forest, like a young lion among flocks of sheep, who if he passes through, both tears down and tears in pieces. And so Deuteronomy 33:27, the eternal God is your refuge, and underneath that the everlasting arms he will thrust out the enemy from before you and say, destroy. That was in Deuteronomy 33:27. And it says, you are my battle axe. It says in Jeremiah. It says in Jeremiah 51:20-21, you are my battle axe and weapons of war. That is the policeman of the globe. You are my policeman. First Britain was a policeman of the globe. Britain stopped the international trade in slaves. 2,000 British sailors died to break the international slave trade, and they broke it. The British did that in the 1800s. They defied the world. British ships, boarded ships from everywhere. They almost went to war with America over it. And they freed slaves. And they stopped international trade in slaves. And the British were first of all the policemen of the globe, and now after that it became America. And when it wasn't America, it was Britain and France. It was one of the other Israelite countries. Whenever they had trouble, whenever one country intervened on behalf of another for the good of the others, for the good of the locals, was one of those of the Israelite nations. And it says, you are my battle axe and weapon of war. For with you I will break the nations in pieces. With you I will destroy kingdoms. With you I will break in pieces the horse and its rider. With you I will break in pieces the chariot and its rider. You are my battle axe and weapon of war. It also says, it says again in Zechariah 10:7, those of Ephraim shall be like a mighty man, the heart shall rejoice as with wine. Yes, the children shall see it and be glad, the heart shall rejoice in the Lord. So that is part, a portion of what we have. We have much more on that, or good deal more on that on every issue. And so it shows, it indicates, it confirms our belief that the lost tribes are amongst Western nations, and that they are important, and that they are dominant and distinguished as being great, mighty, and wealthy. And this is proof. The lost tribes are amongst them. They represent the lost tribes, especially the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. So now, if anyone has any questions or comments to make, please do so.
Brother Yair, you mentioned that they're going to be the battle axe. What reference is that? This is Guy Smith.
Guy Smith, I don't see you. Where are you? Oh, sorry, Guy. I'm sorry. It's good to hear that you're here. I just don't see you.
Some people, you can't see them. We can just hear them.
Okay, Guy.
And Guy's one of them.
Is that the battle axe? Is Jeremiah. Jeremiah, 1 second. Hello? You are my battle axe and weapons of war. With you I'll break the nations in pieces. With you I will destroy kingdoms. Jeremiah 51:20.
Okay, thank you. That's very good.
Lori? Okay.
Yes, Yair, Denmark.
Yes.
How many Jews were in Denmark?
There weren't that many. There weren't many Jews in Denmark. I think, I don't know, maybe 6,000. Maybe 6,000. I don't know. Not that many.
Okay.
But there's a problem. The Danish saved all the Jews in Denmark. They got them all out of Denmark. They took them by ship across the sea to Sweden. Also, Sweden agreed to keep them for the length of the war. Also, the Danish were very vigorous in helping the Jews, even though a few Jews were taken away by the Germans. And the Danish were very vigorous in going after them, asking the Germans about them, sending people to visit them, making sure that they weren't maltreated, and making sure that they survived. They also survived until the end of the war.
Were they also hiding by taking on Christian names and joining Christian congregations to hide?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. That happened in other countries. In other countries, in France they did that. In Holland they did that. In Denmark they were very, one could say, very straightforward, very organized. They came to the Israelites, to the Jewish community, and they made an agreement with them. Said, don't hide. Don't hide. Don't try and run away. We will be responsible for you. We will take you all when the time comes to bring you all to a safe place, and that is what they did. There were cases when Jews were not. They did try and hide themselves, but there were very few, and most of them, when they heard that the ships were waiting for them to take them to Sweden, they went on the ships. The Jews had to halve them. The price the Jews had to pay Swedish sailormen to take them. Half the money came from the Danish, and half of it came from Jews, either the Jews who were being saved paid for themselves, or rich Jews paid for the others, and it was quite a large sum of money. But the Danish sailors justified it by helping the Jews do this. They were risking their livelihood, that the Germans would take away their license and they wouldn't be able to support themselves. So therefore they needed a certain sum of money, and this money was given to them. Also, we should note that before the outbreak of the Second World War, Jews were trying to feed all over the world, okay? And none of them, or almost very few of them, if any, were allowed into Denmark. And amongst the Danes, you did have those who had anti-Semitic attitudes. Some of those who have requested help from the Danes to be let into Denmark received insulting replies. So there still is a point that, and we have to judge everything as it goes, as it appears in its context. We have also another point is that the Germans wanted the goodwill of the Danes. The Germans were very careful not to mistreat the Danes. They were very they didn't want conflict with the Danes. They didn't want altercations with the Danes. They didn't want to know. They were thankful that the Danes were getting the Jews out of there. So that is the local Nazis were thankful that the Danes had taken the Jews out of the place, so that they wouldn't have pressure from the big wigs back in Berlin to persecute them and then antagonize the local people. Whereas that was the situation in Denmark. Whereas in Poland, if someone helped the Jews, they would be put to death. Not only would they be put to death, they would be put to death and all their family. Not only that, but in Poland, the people were dying of starvation. So you help the Jew, you had to take your little piece of meat, your little piece of egg and whatever you have, and divide it up with other people. In Denmark was quite prosperous. The Nazis kept on good terms with the Danes, and also the Danes encouraged the Danes to produce food, butter, cheese, agricultural products, so that the surplus could come back to Germany. So there's different situations, different. It's hard to judge people by making comparisons.
Okay, thanks.
So too, we have in Holland. Holland in the beginning. The Dutch helped the Jews. Holland, the Dutch helped the Jews, and they even went on strikes, and the underground was active in Holland, helping the Jews. But in the end, 80% of the Jews in Holland were taken away and killed. And in addition to having helped the Jews, in many cases, they also had those who helped the Nazis. A lot of Dutch people sympathized with the Nazis. A large number of Dutch volunteers joined the SS and fought for the Nazis. So it wasn't black and white. Amongst the Dutch people who helped the Jews, Christians, especially those in the north, were very active. Calvinists had a good name for helping the Jews. But apart from that, there were also problems. There were Jewish children. Jewish parents would give their children over to Dutch people to look after them. Okay? And Dutch people took in these children. And sometimes they didn't come back. And after the war, there were cases the parents would look for their children and they would have problems getting their children back in in the end, most of them did, but there were cases where the parents were dead. So the children didn't have any direct parents, but they had relations, or they, on the whole, they belonged to the Jewish people. So Jewish representatives came along and tried to get the Dutch people to release these children back into the Jewish fold. And the government was against it. And they set up committees and they did this and that. And there was a whole ruckus about it. And at that time, Israel was isolated. And the whole world seemed to be against Israel. It was just after the Declaration of Independence. And the Dutch were the only people, one of the few nations who were helping the state of Israel in many ways. So the state of Israel didn't want to cause a rupture in their relationships. So in the end, it turned out that about 300 Jewish children that we know of were taken by Dutch Christian parents and racist Christians and not returned to their Jewish relations. So, in other words, they were taken away from the Jewish nation. So everything, so you have black and white everywhere. You have black and white in every case. Historians have to take the overall picture, consider things in the overall sense. And also this too proves our identifications on the whole. We say that lost in tribes are among certain nations or dominant in certain nations in Western Europe, Northern Europe, and they were the nations that were least anti-Semitic, that helped the Jews the most, at least in recent times, and compared to other nations, they were more pro-Jewish than any others.
I don't understand where the anti-Semitic is coming from or why it's there.
Well, there are a lot of explanations for it. Some people are born that way, some people acquire it. You don't know. You also have Jews who hate other Jews, and other people. I live amongst Jews. I know some Jews who get exasperated with their fellow countrymen and say things quite nasty. So it's a natural phenomenon. Also, Arya knows about it. But on the whole, you could say countries that relatively speaking have been less anti-Semitic than others, that had at least a portion of their population of pro-Jewish, are usually those countries who identify as belong to lost in tribes. It doesn't mean that anyone who is anti-Semitic is not descendant of lost in tribes. It just lowers the statistical probability according to our understanding. We use different criteria, and one of our criteria is relative degrees of anti-Semitism or identification with the Jews. Sylvia, you wanted to ask something, say something.
Yeah, I have a lot of people in the area where I live in Michigan who are German descent, and they don't seem to be anything but 10 tribers to me. And a friend wrote to me that identifying Germany with Edom, he was offended by that. He says, I am not sure I agree with the Edom part. I am German and definitely do not identify with Edom. Plus, the Germanic people and the Scandinavians were of similar ancestry. Sorry, I have to dissent a little here. So maybe you could comment on those Germans who were more likely to be Israelites.
Okay, so Edom, we have two books. We wrote 2 books on Edom. It's quite an interesting study. The people from Edom were all over the Middle East. Not only, if you look at a biblical atlas, you'll find a little country to the southeast of Judah, or the southeast of Judah, it depends, called Idumea. Idumea. Idumea is another formal term, Edom. But also we found in the Bible, indications of the Bible, there were people from Edom in Tyre, the Phoenician cities. In Babylon, there's a whole suburb, Temeni, from Edom. There are people in the area of Turkey, not all of Turkey, a small portion of Turkey, but specific areas of Turkey. In Armenia, from Edom, found people from Edom all over the place. Also, when Isaac gave the blessing to Jacob, thinking he was Esau, and then Esau came back and also received a blessing. Esau was blessed that he should be a great nation, live by a sword, and live in a fertile land. and he shall have a degree of greatness in his own right. We find people descend from Edom as being prominent soldiers, prominent military leaders, prominent
Here,
amongst the Gentiles. Sorry.
What I'm asking about is the people who came from
Germany to America, from Germany to America, as we said.
And also our friend Josef Werner, who went to Israel and is now converted. I mean, there are a lot of German people, so that's why we want you to comment on Germany.
Okay, so it's a complicated question. I'll answer the question directly. First of all, people also we find in the Bible Edomites who attached themselves to Israel. Obadiah was a good man who helped save the prophets. He was an Edomite. The other Edomites who are good people in the Bible. And Edomites apparently attached themselves to Israel. Also said, you shall not oppress an Edomite. After 3 generations, he should be accepted as a full-fledged Israelite. That was a commandment. So even then, you had Edomites who became part of Israel. Not only that, we have according to our studies, we believe that people who came from Germany, as we said, people who came from Germany in the 1700s, 1800s, were different from those who stayed behind on the whole. The word Israelites,
that's what I was referring.
The physical area of Germany, the geographical area of Germany, Israelites settled there, primarily from the tribe of Manasseh. Okay, there were also Edomites there, and others, people from Gomer, people from other places. The Edomites may have been dominant amongst the ruling classes, as we find in other areas.
Okay.
Or dominant elements at all events. In the 700s, 800s, we found articles in Jewish studies, other studies, comparing before the Second World War, comparing the political attitudes or the degrees of anti-Semitism of descendants of Germans in the USA and those in Germany, and they were quite different. They were 2 different peoples altogether. Now, maybe that this is an exaggeration, that they had a bit of this, a bit of that. There were also anti-Semites of German stock in the USA before the beginning of the Second World War. There were even those who were against America being involved in the Second World War. They had a whole lobby and a whole lot of things like that, so nothing is as black and white as we might like it to be. But we take the overall picture, overall, those people of German stock who came to the USA appeared to have been different from those who stayed behind, as the Germans themselves, German officials themselves remarked when they were leaving. Also, we have Ripley's Races of Europe. He remarks on that those immigrants are physically different. Their head shapes were different. There was a difference. A certain difference existed.
So would it be appropriate to ask if Josef Werner could comment?
Pardon?
Is it okay if Josef?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you well?
Oh, Shalom, Yair. I was very late today. So I know it's a very complicated term, the Germans and the Israelites. The history is very dark, and therefore we have to, it's better to be a little more detailed in this way, because we can also see the Germans in the northern area, both compared to Anglo-Saxon and Frisian and all this what we have in England and other areas. And this is what you come to the conclusion, this is Israelites. These are Israelites. So I think it's a part of the Germany is a part of the tribes that came from the east to Europe, and what they did in the east side from the Rhine, they did the war against Rome, and I think this is a part of the task from Joseph to fight against Rome, and at the end, they brought Rome to fall. So if you look to the part of the Christianization from Germany, this was separated from the west part. The Franks were the first were Catholicized, and they made war against the Saxon, and the Saxon didn't like the Christianity. So this is, I think, the northern area of Germany is very well Israelites, like English people. This is from the language. We have Frisian language, Anglo-Saxon English is very, very common. So I think there are many, many things in common with the Germans, and we have to, for the future, I think we have to care a little bit more of the feeling of the empathy the people from Germany will show forward Israel, I think, the Jews.
Okay, okay, you're right. Because we shouldn't judge people. We also shouldn't make them generalizations. Never make generalizations. Take people as you find them. But nevertheless, you study history. People study history, but also in science, you have to make generalizations when you. In other words, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like you have something like this. You say. You have to make a decision. 60% is this way, 40% is this way. You have to go with the 60%, okay? And
at the end,
that's the way these studies go. That's the way we get from one point to another.
Okay. At the end, we have, I say it always, we have the prophecy of Rivka. In Genesis 25:23, we have two kingdoms in the womb, and this is still the kingdoms was not only for Jacob and Esau, but also for the future. And so we have also in Germany two kingdoms, and unfortunately, in the history, Germany was not so good to show the good side. Sorry for this.
Okay. Also, if someone wanted to write an article on this, pointing at his point, we'd publish it. We do that.
That would be really good.